Let's welcome an adjunct professor at Montclair State University, Dan Geltrude. Dan, good morning. Okay, so we're at a bit of a crossroads here. So will TikTok's parent company divest of the app, or will it be banned? I mean, this has been such a back and forth. It's very interesting because on one hand, they're saying, hey, the Chinese owners only own up 20% of TikTok. There is no security concern here. And the other side of the states are saying, yes, it is a security concern. What are your thoughts on what's going to happen?
Well, we'll find out whether it gets to the Supreme Court or not, and then that will be absolute. But we're also going to have an absolute answer if it doesn't get to the Supreme Court, because as of January 19th, if it doesn't go to the Supreme Court, then it's going to be banned in the United States. So what I think will happen is one way or the other, there's a good chance that TikTok will have to sell. But the question here, as you've raised, is whether it's truly a national security threat. I don't know that, and we're relying on the government to tell us that it is. Now, look, I'm in New Jersey. I got drones flying over my head every single night. First it was don't believe your lying eyes, and now it's like, well, we'll have to look into this. Maybe it is drones. So, quite frankly, I don't know what to believe here, Alex.
Dan, you raised the most important point. You actually took the words right out of my mouth. We have to depend on the government to decide whether this is a security threat or not. We've got drones in multiple states overhead. We have that Chinese spy balloon, which they said, no, there's no issues there. We have a completely open border to the north and the south. So if they're really concerned about security threats, I mean, this whole TikTok thing, I don't have a TikTok. I have no dog in the fight here. But it just seems like a joke to me, considering 60% of TikTok is owned by global investors like a BlackRock. Something just doesn't smell right here to me. But again, we will see what happens. Okay, so is the end of Macy's coming sooner rather than later? Macy's is now closing more stores than it had initially planned. So in its latest earnings report, the company revealing that it will shut down 65 locations by the end of the year, which is up from the just 50 stores it originally said it would close by February. By 2026, Macy's plans on shutting down 150, quote, unproductive stores. They'll be focusing on the resources and other more important locations. Dan, so in a statement, Macy's CEO Tony Spring said this, quote, we are making the necessary moves to reinvigorate relationships with our customers through improved shopping experiences, relevant assortments, and compelling value. Spring talks about improve the shopping experience and this dressing up a deeper problem. I don't know, Dan, does this really address their struggles? Is it just too big of a fight to try to go against places like an Amazon or a Walmart?
Yeah, they got some real challenges here, Alex. When you look at the numbers that we saw for Black Friday and for Cyber Monday, everything points in the direction that it's all about online sales. Now, Macy's cannot compete with Amazon and Walmart related to their online presence. So they're continuing down a path of brick and mortar, which is clearly not working. So if that's their bread and butter and they're continuing to have to close stores, I'm not so sure about what the future really holds for Macy's.
Yeah, it's going to be really sad, kind of the end of an era of this in-person brick and mortar shopping. Last but not least, I have a massive movie buff, so I had to get to this one. So the box office, Marvel's Kraven the Hunter has had a terrible start, to say the least, in North American theaters. This weekend earning a dismal $11 million compared to box office favorites like Moana 2, Wicked, which combined $49 million. So the problem most likely lies in the fact that Kraven, is more of just a spin-off franchise coming from the Spider-Man universe. Okay, so this is kind of the Sony world of the Spider-Man and Marvel universe. You've got the Venom trilogy, which actually did semi-okay. You have Morbius, you've got Madam Web. All just been abysmal. Dan, I'm not sure if you're also movie buff like me, but what do you think is behind the poor performances of these Spider-Man spinoffs? I mean, they are kind of all in the Marvel universe, but they're doing terribly. I look at the reviews of something like an Iron Man, Marvel, 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Kraven the Hunter has like a 30%. It's just not good.
No, it's not good at all. And you know what, Alex? It is really tough for sequels and spin-offs to be successful. Now, as far as if I'm a movie buff, well, yeah, I like movies, but I'll tell you, I'm a streaming buff, and I'll tell you why. Is because after paying all that money to go to a theater, and I get it's about the experience, if I don't like what I'm seeing, I want to be able to click it off and go on to something else. So that's why I'm not so big on the theater. I want that instant gratification. And I do get that people want the experience, but they just don't want these experiences.
I know. And you talk about streaming. I know a lot of like the actors and producers are all saying, I don't want my movie to go straight to streaming. But honestly, a lot of movies that go straight to streaming are extraordinarily successful. I know my Peaky Blinders movie, it's going straight to Netflix, and I know it'll be successful. But yeah, some of these spinoffs, not doing so hot. Dan Geltrude, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Always a pleasure having you on.
Thanks, Alex.